Greetings everyone, this is Connor from Dagura TV, and in this video I'm talking about the realistic likelihood of a Starfield announcement at E3 this year from Bethesda. So in the last video I presented all the evidence that we know so far in the source of trademarks that Starfield is a real thing being made by the Bethesda Game Studios and will be one of the titles that Bethesda Game Studios say is one of the two major IPs they've got coming out before Elder Scrolls 6. And obviously Starfield's been a thing that's been talked about for quite a while, gaining more and more momentum the closer we get to E3, which is just over a couple of weeks away at the time of recording this video. So I kind of wanted to talk about the realistic chance of it being revealed either at this E3 or beforehand or just not being revealed at all. I'm personally a big believer that Starfield will be revealed and have some presence at the Bethesda showcase this year at E3. I think it'll be the major game showed there and the game that was going to be released end of this year. But I'm also the guy who said last year it's 99.9% likely it was going to be at last year's conference. So maybe take my word with a grain of salt. But I want to kind of give you all the evidence that I've got and all the kind of things that kind of put this idea into my head that Bethesda are going to have a game out Bethesda Game Studios is going to have a game out this year. So the first thing that really kind of led me to thinking, yeah, Starfield is going to be at the Bethesda E3 conference is that Bethesda are actually having a press conference. You know, if they didn't have a press conference, I'd be thinking, you know what, maybe, you know, they haven't got anything to announce when it comes down to major games this year. You know, Bethesda the kind of company that they don't like having long marketing cycles after they announce a game. You know, like they did a big thing last year when they announced everything that was there. They said everything that we've announced here is going to be out by before the end of this year. I think the longest one they had was Dishonored 2, when they just basically in E3 2015 they came out, announced it, said yeah, we're making on it, but it's too early in development to show anything. So then they came back next year and showed it off. Fallout 4, that was announced like the week before E3 2015, then they showed it off and it came out in November after that. Wolfenstein announced at E3 2017 and released at the end of the year. That's the kind of cycle they tend to go with. I think the only one that we can really pick as being kind of a break of that rule is Rage 2, when they just showed that came out like a week ago or 10 days ago, something like that, and that game's coming at Q2 2019, so it's not coming out before the end of the year apparently, unless something changes at E3, we don't know, but that's what they've said so far. So the fact that Bethesda are having a press conference, and what we know for sure is going to be there is, you know, new ESO stuff and an update on how that game's doing, the Elder Scrolls Legends, same thing as ESO, Quake Champions, what's going on with that, and we know Rage 2 is going to be there. So obviously not going to be a huge amount of, you know, room for like a major title. That's kind of stuff that people are kind of guessing, really. There's rumours of, you know, a new VR thing, maybe to do with Dishonored, but I'm not holding my breath for that. The Fallout 3 remaster looks like it's going to be real. Update that and also come to Switch. That'll kind of keep the Fallout fans happy. And also I'd be really excited about that, so I can able to play Fallout 3 on my PC, because it doesn't work on it for some reason. Something to do with, I think it was like Windows 7 games for Windows Live or something like that. It doesn't work. Anyway. DLC for Wolfenstein 2 and Evil Within 2, but I wouldn't bank on that personally. So there's definitely a major void there for a press conference. So if Bethesda just kind of announced that stuff, it'd probably be a candidate, I think, for just one of the worst E3 press conferences. Because, you know, people were saying last year's was bad. And last year, you know, they had the whole Creation Club stuff they announced that did not go down well. But, you know, announcing new content for the Bethesda Game Studios titles. And then also announcing Wolfenstein 2 and Evil Within. And also, you know, some of the new VR things that they had. There was kind of a there wasn't a great packed out conference, but there's stuff there. Here, there isn't stuff. Like, there's literally the stuff that's there is just so predictable and just so inconsequential to what people want to see. It's just not going to make for a good show. So there's definitely there's a void there, and what's going to fill that void? Some people are saying Doom 2, but I don't think that's happening this year personally. I think Starfield is way more likely to fill that slot of making it a big conference, and I think Pete Hines has come out and said on Twitter that rehearsing for this E3 this year is making him so excited, and said it could possibly be the longest Bethesda E3 press conference yet. So it needs something big at the end of it, and whether that is going to be, you know, Todd Howard coming out on stage and doing like a Fallout 4 presentation that he gave, but maybe even be longer, because he kind of has to set up the world a little bit for everyone watching it, because, you know, with Fallout 4 everyone kind of knew what to expect from it. You know, we know what the Fallout world is. He just kind of said, you know, it's set roughly around the time of Fallout 3 and it's set in Boston, and then everyone's kind of got a much greater idea than what we could have, you know, with Starfield. Starfield is going to take quite a bit of time to kind of show what the aesthetic of the world is going to be, where it's going to be set, what's the game going to play like and everything. You know, there's going to be all that kind of stuff to do, whereas with Fallout 4, that's literally taken up into 1 or 2 sentences when that could be 5 or 10 minutes in a Starfield demo. But anyway, could that be it, or could it be both of them? That would be a really great surprise. But I'm not a big believer in the Doom 2 idea. I'll talk about more into that at a later date. But Starfield, I do believe, is going to fill that slot of a major game. Another piece of evidence that I've got as well is that Todd Howard, or another thing that kind of gave me the idea that Starfield could be out this year, is that Todd Howard went on Ted Price's The Game Maker's Notebook podcast and talked a lot about, you know, being a game maker and kind of like the stuff that's interesting and everything, and about work and all that kind of stuff. And it's a really good podcast to listen to. I made a video about it in the past when I go into more detail on it. But one thing that he talked about was really the current state of the studio, and a lot of fans took away that really that Todd Howard and Bethesda Game Studios were kind of becoming into that crunch period, or we're currently in crunch period, as Todd was talking. And if you don't know what crunch period is the crunch period tends to be when a development team kind of massively increases their workflow and the amount of hours they work. You know, the stories about people sleeping at the office and waking up and go back to making, not really taking any breaks, doing, like 15, 16-hour days and stuff, or even more than that in some cases. And they do that to kind of achieve the milestone of being able to get the game out at the time when the publisher says it wants to be released. So if they say they want the game to be out in 2018 and then they feel like they're a little bit below schedule, or really they feel like they can do a lot more to polish the game before then, they kind of start ramping up the amount of time they can work before they start showing the game off to the public, and in the terms of what's going to be happening with Bethesda Game Studios' games. So, the reason why he kind of gave us that idea of why he's doing that is because I'm paraphrasing with really what he said, but he'd say things like, we're starting to get into that busy period of game making now, it's busier than what it's ever been before now at Bethesda Game Studios, and things are definitely ramping up with what they're doing at the minute, and all that kind of stuff. Kind of gave people an idea that there's something coming soon, really. And also he talked a lot about the next game they're making after this one coming up, saying, he didn't talk a lot about what the game's actually going to be, but talked about how the developers are looking at what's going to be available for their production for the next game, and are looking forward to using that stuff and utilising the new tools, like a new animation system was an example that he gave in that interview. Kind of gave a lot of people the idea that the game that they're currently working on is kind of coming to the end of its development cycle, which kind of makes sense that the game's going to be coming out in the near future, and that was a couple of months ago. So to kind of be able to get the game into a much more presentable state for E3 kind of makes a lot of sense to a lot of people, and I think that was a really good kick in the right direction for people, like us, that are really theorising about Starfield and everything, and Bethesda Game Studios' next game. And that was kind of a big one that gave me the idea that, yeah, actually, it does sound like the Bethesda Game Studios are coming to the end of this cycle for Starfield. Another reason as well why I think one of the big arguments about Bethesda Game Studios not having a game out this year is that they say it's too quick for them to make a new AAA installment, especially with all the remasters of Skyrim they've had coming out on all the VR projects and everything. And I personally don't agree with that idea whatsoever, because Bethesda Game Studios tend to take around 3 to 4 years for a new major title. In some cases it's even quicker than that. We had Oblivion in early 2006 and Fallout 3 at the end of 2008. That was 2.5 years gap, and then we had Skyrim in 2011, which is a 3-year gap, and then we had Fallout 4 in 2015, which was a 4-year gap. So if the game comes out at the end of 2018, that will be a 3-year gap between Fallout 4 and what Bethesda Game Studios' game is this year, Starfield. And to be honest with you, that's not going away from what we tend to think for Bethesda Game Studios' development cycle, and Todd Howard has come out and says they're busier than what they've ever been before. This is the Game Slice interview, said to expect to hear from them more regularly, and when he gave a lot of info at E3 2016 that time. And also in the time since Fallout 4, Bethesda have come out and added 2 new development locations to them. They added Austin and Montreal, which was earlier than Austin. Austin used to be the formerly known as Battlecry Studios, and a lot of that was probably done to deal with the workload, like, with the whole Skyrim stuff, and the rumours of, Fallout 3 coming to Switch and all that, and the VR titles that they released, and all the content for... there's so much great content on the Creation Club that everyone loves to use. So, there's definitely able to deal with that side of the stuff that Bethesda are working on, and then obviously the main Maryland studio can go to work and really work hard on the new AAA games. There's also as well, there was the tweet from that company a while back that it makes the trailers and does the marketing, a lot of third-party marketing for Bethesda Game Studios, says they're looking forward to sharing what they've been working on soon. As well, I also like the theory as well that Starfield was supposed to be announced last year at Bethesda's E3 press conference when they had the starry background and everything, and it kind of worked well as well with them showing that kind of video announcing Wolfenstein 2 and The Evil Within, and then bring Todd out on stage to talk about what's going on with with Bethesda Game Studios announcing a new game in Starfield and everything. It would have worked really well, and been a great press conference. And you had the starry background and everything. It kind of looks really set up for have a Starfield, presence there. But you know, the game, the theory is that the game was not in a good state and got delayed to push back to this year, so they could maybe, you know, have it as a better press conference and have, you know, the game out in a much better state than what it would have been. And I like that theory, and I think that kind of makes sense with how Bethesda went along with everything that they did with the press conference last year. Also, in that GameSlice interview with Jeff Keighley that I keep bringing up, Todd Howard did say that the BGS are going to be more regular with game releases, so it kind of makes sense to have them have a game that's going to take a lot less development time than what it took for Skyrim. Fallout 4. Sorry, the gap between Fallout 4 and Skyrim. So that would make sense. And there's also evidence that Starfield or a BGS title will be announced at E3 this year, as we can expect in Bethesda fashion. That, you know, that Bethesda tend to release their games in the style where they announce them and then they release them in the same year. I think there's a lot of evidence that Starfield will go along with that trend as well. And they could also do the Fallout 3 thing of, you know, having the announcement trailer come out a week before E3. And to be honest with you, some people I've seen on Reddit and the Starfield Reddit are saying that they could do that. And if they are going to do that, I think they would have to do that trailer probably like the 31st of May, 1st of June, just to kind of let it settle down a little bit before E3. And that would kind of work really well for them. And if we're going to be honest, I think the reason they do that, to announce it before E3, is to kind of prevent possible the Elder Scrolls 6 disappointment, because a lot of us know, are watching these videos and are following what Bethesda are doing, know that the Elder Scrolls 6 is at least 3 games away. 2 major games coming out and then the Elder Scrolls 6. That's what we're going off Todd's word and Pete Hines of what they've said, and I think a lot of the people in the general community still don't know that. You know, I watch a lot of people, internet personalities and everything, about games that don't necessarily follow Bethesda, and when they're talking about E3 predictions and stuff, Elder Scrolls 6 still come up, you know, and some of them say, no, it's a while away, it's not happening, and then some people say, wouldn't it be crazy if it's announced, to just start talking about and everything about, and some people are actually making predictions that it is going to be announced, so that, you know, and these are, you know, major gaming personalities that are saying that, and, you know, people that are associated with the press in some way. So if they're kind of thinking that, I dread to think what the casual audience are thinking, you know, who hasn't got the news stretched to them that the Elder Scrolls 6 isn't happening for a very long time. So having this kind of trailer come out before it will really settle in to everyone that the Elder Scrolls 6 is definitely not happening, and instead Starfield is, and I think that would help, you know, settle the disappointment, because I think if people at the end of it, you know, end of the showcase, and then Pete Hines goes, you know, I've got one more thing, Todd, now come out on stage please, and then he comes out and says about Starfield, this sci-fi game, and everyone's expecting to say Elder Scrolls 6, people are going to be disappointed and pissed off, and it's going to leave a sour taste in the mouth. Whereas I think if you temper that with the trailer before then, I think that would really, you know, do a world of good for Bethesda. Whereas for us, it wouldn't make a difference, but for the majority of the casual crowd, I think it would make a real good impact on them for preparing themselves for that E3 showcase. Because they're still going to be disappointed, you know, that it's not going to be the Elder Scrolls 6, but I think it could do well to, you know, temper their hate, if you know what I mean. So thanks a lot for watching. Let me know if you think that Starfield is going to be out this year, because I'm, like I said, I'm one of the believers that I think it is going to be announced and released this year. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with the Bethesda E3 press conference, because if it doesn't, it's going to be fun seeing all the people go losing their minds online. And if it does come out, then obviously we've got a new Bethesda game to look forward to and actually see what the game's going to look like. So I'm very excited to see what the next Bethesda Game Studios game is actually going to look like. So please let me know what you think about all the stuff that I've gave you here. If there's anything more that you think that this gave you the idea that Starfield's going to be released this year, let me know in the comments below, and I'll definitely debate a lot with you and talk with you about different ideas and everything. And if you don't like any of the evidence I've gave, then call me out on it. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you click subscribe and follow me at DegoraC on Twitter, and I will see you guys later. Goodbye.